Hi, welcome back to Box Delights. In this video I want to give you a preview of an upcoming game on Kickstarter. This is a card and dice driven war game set on a global scale with the British commanded by His Majesty King George II lining up against His Majesty King Louis XV of France. During the game we're going to be fighting over colonies. There's a set of 30 colonies, 15 that were controlled by the French, 15 by the British in 1750. We take these two decks and shuffle them together, and this is going to give us a starting deck of colonies for which we're going to fight over. And we create each of these colonies randomly from this deck. We'll do that in a minute. In the middle is the high seas. This is the centre of the board. We also have a timer. Our timer is driven by this event deck. We're going to draw 10 events. Okay, that's going to be our timer. There's going to be 5 turns, 5 for each player. Each turn they'll be drawing one of these events. So it's a fixed length game. So your aim is to control as many colonies by the end of those 5 turns each. Okay, so we draw a random 10, and we'll place these below this card here. Alright, so this is our timer. Everything else goes below this card here, the ones that allow us to purchase events. Now, this is a print and play version, so do forgive the quality of my rubbish printer and cheap cardstock. Okay. Now, as well as area controlling these colonies, we've also got an element of set collection. As you control these colonies, you're going to be gaining access to, and they're going to be producing for you, resources, the most prominent of which is sugar, fish, fur, indigo, silk, precious metals, spices, ivory, and the most coveted of worldly resources, timber. And as you collect sets of 3 unique items, you're going to earn more income. Alright, so you're going to be collecting sets of these resources. This is your player mat, so this is the British, and they're going to have some gold coins. I've substituted in some coins from my own collection that sit in your treasury. Some control markers that you can use to mark the colonies that you control. And each player also has a battle deck, so we have things like leaders, these are plantations here, tactics that you can use, mercenaries that you can hire, armies to fight on your behalf. I guess the French ought to be blue really, and the British red. Let's switch these around. And as I say, this is primarily a dice-driven combat system, so I'll demonstrate that so you can see how that works. So you are fighting with each other to gain those area controls, to win those production resources, to control the most colonies, to win the game. The other component of the game is the international politics of dealing with foreign nations who you can persuade to join you in your battle against your opponent. These cards here will supplement your battle decks and could be won by completing these political objectives. Like this is the Spanish Expeditionary Forces, and here we have Russia entering the war, giving you these forces released from Europe cards. These other political objectives allow you to gain different resources as these political nations help you. I'll run you through a game turn and you can see exactly how these mechanisms play out. But before we do that, let's set up our starting colonies. We want 3 these cards in each colony. This one is from India. This is Fort William in Bengal, so we'll place this one in a zone for India. Then we have North America. This is Quebec. We have India, Pondicherry. So we've already got 3 here. Then we have the Caribbean, Martinique. Then we're looking for 2 more for Africa. North America. Okay, so now we have our 4 regions, our 4 theatres of war. For the start of the game, each player is going to control 3 colonies, and they're going to take turns picking one of these 12 colonies. The player who wins the toss, wins the roll-off, they decide, do they want to be first player or do they want to get first pick at their starting colonies. So let's say the French decide they want to get starting pick here. And let's say the French decide they want to try and corner the ivory market, so they're going to go and place one of their control tokens here in Senegal. And this exports ivory, so they immediately grab an ivory resource for having control of this colony. Remember, ivory is one of the least available resources. There's a smaller pile here. British are going to go for furs here in Virginia. French are going to take Saint-Domingue, and this takes indigo. Apologies for my pronunciation. Grab some indigo. You can see we've already got a set of 2. We need sets of 3. British are going to grab, let's go and grab Pondicherry. This gives them silk. Okay. And then finally the French are going to go for Namabo precious metals. Now I think the British will head in here too to get a foothold in Africa. You'll notice each player starts with a treasury of 3 gold. Let's give the French theirs. And they have a hand of cards. Each player starts the game with a fixed 2 cards, and then they draw 3 cards from the deck of historical events that are free to purchase. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. I'm just drawing off the bottom just because it makes it easier with these cutouts. Each player starts with this card, His Majesty, giving this matter his personal attention. Play at any time to re-roll any of your dice or cancel the effects of one historical event and discard. So both players have one of these. The French player starts with the Palace of Versailles, the splendour of Versailles, the birthplace of Louis XV. Before attempting add +2 to one political objective attempt. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then they get these 3 cards to add to their hand. So these historic events are things that you can play out to influence the war. And we have the similar cards over here. So we've got, this is George II, I think, and then William Pitt. This is William Pitt the Elder, I think, Prime Minister of Great Britain, who was famous during the 7 Years' War. I think this is known as the French and Indian War in North America, when the 2 great world powers of Britain against Spain and France to control the colonies and world trade. So William Pitt was Prime Minister, intent on victory over France. And perhaps this is meant to be George III. I don't know, I think George III came to power in 1760, but that overlaps. I don't know, this is William Pitt Elder, and then his son, William Pitt Younger, who was also Prime Minister. Not sure. If you know, let me know. I don't recognise the pictures. Is second or George II or George III? George III was definitely 1760. Okay, let's start things off. British are going to go first because French had first pick at colonies. And remember, what we do, we've got 10 cards here. We're each going to take one of these. This is the start of your turn event, and is our timer for the game. Put it in our hand. We can play this history, these historic events, whenever we wish at any time. Now keep an eye on your objectives. Remember, you want to try and nail down some of these colonies, and having unique resources is going to make you a stronger force. So there's only 1 furs on the whole board, so reinforcing furs is a good thing. And what we have here is something called a fortress card. And basically this is going to give us a bonus when we're in combat here. So we're going to fortify Virginia. Okay. None of my other cards are kind of helping me. They're a little bit more situational, so I'm going to keep those aside for now. Keep your hand hidden, alright? So your opponent can't see what you've got up your sleeve. These have kind of got lots of instants that kind of come in and surprise your opponent. The next thing we're doing is we're looking at the colonies we control, because a lot of them have these, if you control at the start of your turn effects. Okay, some of them may involve rolling a die or taking some action or doing something. So look at the colonies you control. So although it says at the start of your turn, first step is draw that event card. And then we go and look at our colonies and execute this stuff. This says if you control the leader. We don't have any leaders here right now. Our battle deck contains leaders, so perhaps that's something we want to think about putting down this turn so we can benefit from it. Next thing we can do on our turn is try, if we wish, to complete a political objective. You've only got one shot at this, and it's quite tough. Each of these political objectives has a numeric on it. So this one here, the Netherlands, has 6+, Spain 7+, Prussia 7+, Sweden here 4+. Sweden enters the war on your side, add 1 timber to your economy. Alright, so that's a good, achievable political objective. I need to roll a die and I need to get 4+ to complete this objective. And there's only one piece of timber, and the only way to get it is from here. So securing this objective will earn the British the timber production. So why don't we try that? But we want to do better than 4+. What we'd like to do is improve our chances a little bit. So we'll look at your historic events, and you can see William Pitt can add 2 to one political objective attempt and then discard this card. Now you've got to declare these things before you roll the dice. Now as it goes, I'm not, maybe I'll save William for something a little bit more important. And the other thing you can do is use coins from your treasury, and every gold coin spent will add 1 to your die roll. But again, you've got to spend this before you roll your dice. Okay, but spend your money wisely, because that's also our means to buying these cards from our battle deck. Right, they have a gold cost associated with them. So why don't let's spend 2 gold, we'll add 2 to our die, so we'll roll. We're looking for 4+ off a single die. 1 is always a failure, no matter how many modifiers you have. Okay, we got a 5, so we're good. So we successfully completed the political objective. We placed one of our control markers here to say that we control this. Now, our opponent could come and attempt this as well, and if they do, they'll replace our control marker with their control marker, and they'll take the timber production and push it over to their side. Alright, so you can steal each other's rewards from these political objectives. There can only be one person's marker here at a time. I think in the final production there'll be a double-sided token, so you can flip it when you take control from your opponent. As it stands, we take the timber, place it with the British. Now, if you want to keep these in sets, that kind of helps. Alright. Now I've got 1 gold left to spend. Now you can only make 1 political attempt each turn, otherwise you could just sit there and keep rolling dice, right? So it's 1 political attempt each turn. We've got 1 gold left, we can spend it, and we've got a couple of choices here. We can buy cards from our battle deck, or we can go off to the historical event deck and buy one of these cards to get our hand filled up, and each one of those cards costs 1 gold. Let's spend our gold and buy a card from our battle deck. I'm going to start off with one of these cheaper guys. Let's buy George Anson, and we'll place him here on our purchases on our area of our player board. Okay. Any remaining gold left unspent sits in your treasury. You don't have to spend any gold, but obviously if you want to maximise your turn, then you're going to be spending it. But don't worry, I mean, at the beginning of every turn you're getting new income. Alright, so you're getting 3 more coins plus anything that's any of your other cards are giving you. On the player mat there's also a useful turn sequence. So we've got down to purchases. We've spent all our gold now. And now we've got the movement step where we move units that are on the board, but we've not got any units there. Resolve any battles, there aren't any battles in place. And now we get to the point where we get to place our purchases. And we can place them at the high seas or in a colony we control. And the thing about movement is that you can move from one colony in the same territory, right? They're all considered to adjacent to each other, so I can go from here to here to here. Okay, this is one movement. This is one movement. Alright. The other thing you can do is the high seas is considered adjacent to every colony. So no matter where you are, you can always move to the high seas as your movement, and then from the high seas to any other place. Now the point here is that if you want to try and attack somebody else's colony, then you're going to be moving in and out of the high seas to get there. Alright, or of course if I'm here, I can move sideways and attack. As it stands, we can place George Anson now, because we're at our place purchases, either at the high seas or on a colony that we control. So we have to think, well, where's our target? What do we want to do? Well, I want to shore up Virginia a little bit more. So I'm going to place my George Anson guy here. And I know that at the beginning of my next turn, I'm going to potentially get an extra piece of gold. Okay. Now we've reached the end of the turn, and now we can collect our income ready for the next turn. So we get our 3 gold, plus we get 1 extra gold for every set of 3 distinct exports. Okay, so 3 different exports in 1 set. Doesn't matter what the set is. I can place it like this if I want. I get an extra gold. Okay. And now the turn passes to the French. So they draw up. We're down to 8 cards here now. And they take actions. I mean, there's stuff you can do on other people's turns as well. This one's called Uprising in Europe. Place in an opponent's play area. They are -1 on political rolls. Opponent may cancel by placing one of their own leaders out of play. Okay, so there's different things. This one, new colony founded, says draw 1 colony from the remaining colonies and place it on the board. Right, so we're making a new colony. This one says trade dominance, gain 1 gold. Well, let's do that straight away. Gain a gold. What I'd like to do actually is kind of progress things a little bit, get some units on the board and show you some of this battling that's going on. This is local allies. It says we may enter play an uncontrolled colony or a colony you control. So when I get to the play purchases step, maybe I want to play it here in the Caribbean. Now what you want to do is place these things on your side to make it easier to read what's going on. They do have the flag, the French fleur-de-lis here, so you know which cards are yours anyway. But let's say for argument's sake I place it here. And then I've got a captain. Let's grab a captain. Alright, let's grab Louis Charles César Letellier. And he's going to come in here at one of your controlled locations, but then during movement he can move off to the high seas, and then on another turn move in to here, and then we can move in here, and then local allies as units will move with you. When we get to the battle step, battles occur where we're at a colony where there's 2 units, right? And they're going to face off each other. Now you've always got to assign units 1 to 1. Alright, so as the attacker here, I couldn't put both my guys in here. I've got to first say this guy's going to attack him, and then they're going to attack him. Alright, if I had a third and they've only got 2, then I can say, well, he's going to gang up on this guy here. Alright, and then you resolve the battle. Now remember, this is not going to be a straightforward, you against you, because there's other things that can come into play. We've got an ambush card here. Immediately destroy 1 German mercenaries or local allies. So I could bang this down and say, I'm sorry, local allies, you're out of here. But what we're doing here is we're simultaneously rolling dice. Well, let's look at these 2. Let's assume the local allies were still here. So you look at the icons. He gets a die with a +1 modifier. He gets a die. And then this George Anson gets a die with a +1 modifier. Ambush hits the table, gets rid of local allies. Right. Roll your dice. So he rolls, and you're rolling simultaneously. The side with the highest sum total is victor, and the losing side must destroy 1 unit as a casualty of war. If the British had lost here, then they would just take their casualty of war, put them back in their battle deck. Alright, he flees the scene. In this case it was a leader rather than a unit, and a leader will instead be captured, and that's placed in the prison. So these leaders are kind of unique. They're not going to go in your battle deck. They're going to get captured, and these will kind of act as a tiebreaker. Whoever controls the most colonies wins. If you both control the same number of colonies, then whoever has the most prisoners will break the tiebreaker. In this instance, we both rolled a 1, so it would stay, kind of a deadlock here, so no casualties. And the other interesting thing is if local allies remained here, they roll their 1 die with their +1 modifier, so that becomes a 6. They roll the die for Bertrand Francois, and then roll the die for local allies. This is 3 and becomes a 4 because of the +1. They don't get a 9. These 2 units fight independently. What it means is we get 2 shots at trying to beat this guy because we've got 2 units. Alright, so you don't combine the scores. This one doesn't win, this one doesn't win. Alright, they still act independently. And what's important here is that at the end, whoever's left standing will control the colony. There's only 1 round of combat. If this had turned out into a draw, and at the end of the round of combat we've still got opponents facing each other off, then everything remains as it is, and they will continue the fight on the next player's turn. There's no withdrawal. You can't run away in 1750. You've got to keep fighting, but not on this turn, on the next turn. And that gives both players an opportunity then to react and bring in reinforcements, try and do something about it, play some cards down. Alright, so you can see this is a great little war game where you're fighting over all these colonies and lots of different card interactions going on. It's about 30 minutes to play. It is 2-player only, and with the political objectives as a kind of a sideboard going on, using the tactics of your hand and controlling these colonies and building up your colonies, fortifying them, bringing units into play. Let's have a look. We've got some German mercenaries here. May enter play at a colony only immediately when purchased. Destroy at the end of this turn. So, you know, you could spend your 1 gold, bring in some mercenaries, and then you become the attacker, fortified to take down this French attack. Remember, controlling colonies means you control exports. And it's okay if I control, if I take control of another colony that gives me precious metals, I can take another one of these cards and pair it up with furs here instead. Alright, so it doesn't matter that I've got duplicates, it doesn't matter that I've got 2 colonies. What's important here is I've got 5 exports coming out, and 2 of them are precious metals. I only need to control 1 more export, and I've got a set of 2 sets of 3. Now I've got more gold coming in. I can buy more cards. So on my turn, I'm a stronger fighting force for keeping control of these colonies. Neat ideas, neat ideas. I love the theme, and I've backed this one. There's only a few days left. If you like the idea of the theme and this kind of imaginary battle between these 2 big forces, if you like the idea of a war game in miniature, in card form, go check it out. 1750, Britain versus France by Battle Hardened Games.